The day before the wedding, Robert Blackwood was kidnapped. I emptied my savings, borrowed from everyone I knew, and trembling, handed over the ransom. But the gangster sneered and proposed a condition: spend a night with me, or he dies. Looking at the dying Robert Blackwood, I took off my clothes, tears in my eyes. But the next second, the crowd burst into harsh laughter. The gangster respectfully handed the phone with the recorded video to Robert Blackwood. "Mr. Robert, 3 years ago, Miss Eleanor got married, and you stormed out of the Blackwood estate in a fit of pique, finding some girl from a nightclub to act out a scene to provoke her. Now Miss Eleanor is divorced, and it's time for you to come home. This woman's love for you is incredible, it even touched me." Robert Blackwood wiped the fake blood from his face and sneered, "Daisy, you, an orphan girl working at a nightclub, are you even worthy of loving me?" I crumpled to the ground, trembling, and clutched my clothes around myself. I regretted it. 3 years ago, I shouldn't have run away from the wedding. What, were you still expecting to actually marry me tomorrow? They were right, dealing with women like you requires being ruthless. With that, he threw the ransom plus a check at my feet, looking down at me condescendingly. "Daisy, I don't care if your love for me is genuine, nor do I need your cheap affection. Take the money and disappear. Don't bother me again. A word of warning, if you dare show your face to Eleanor, and she's unhappy, the consequences will be on you." I smiled faintly and threw the check back. He frowned in disgust. "What? $1 million isn't enough? That's money you couldn't earn in a lifetime working at a nightclub." A subordinate nearby immediately echoed, "Mr. Robert, these women are the most troublesome. If you give her money now, what if she gets a taste for it and clings to you?" Robert Blackwood stared at me coldly. "Daisy, feel free to try. I'll keep the recorded video. If you dare cause trouble, I won't hesitate to put it online and let everyone appreciate your figure." I looked up at him. His features were familiar, but in that moment, he was terrifyingly strange. It was only then that I truly understood: the gentle and considerate Robert Blackwood of the past 3 years had always been just an illusion. I slowly lowered my head, my voice dry. "Robert Blackwood, delete the video. I don't want your money, and I won't bother you again." He was visibly taken aback, then his face grew colder, putting on a show of virtue. "You don't want my money, yet you want to go back to working at the nightclub selling drinks? None of your business." "None of my business?" He suddenly grabbed my chin, his grip painfully strong. "Getting drunk by those guys, letting them take advantage of you to earn a few dirty bucks? You actually enjoy that?" He knew perfectly well that I'd rather be drunk to the point of a stomach bleed than let anyone take advantage of me. But now, he was deliberately using those words to hurt me. "I didn't." My voice involuntarily held a sob. "Enough." His eyes flickered, and he impatiently pushed me away. "I don't care about your business. The check is here. Tear it up if you don't want it." His phone suddenly vibrated. Seeing the caller ID, he answered frantically, his face instantly melting like ice, his voice so tender it could drip honey. "Eleanor, I've made things clear to her. Don't worry." "Eleanor, you're not mad at me, are you?" I'll be right back. I miss you too." He hurried out as he spoke, not sparing me another glance. Getting into the Maybach already waiting outside the warehouse, he sped away. The men who had played the gangsters whistled with malicious grins and followed him out. The gangster who had sneered earlier spat at my feet before leaving. So what if Miss Eleanor was adopted into the Blackwood estate? Mr. Robert has liked her since Hey, we're children. You can't even compare to a single strand of her hair. I finally understood everything. No wonder for the past 3 years, whenever things got intimate, he would suddenly stop and say he was saving the best for the wedding night. I thought it was respect. Now I understood he was remaining chaste for someone else. The surging emotions could no longer be controlled, tears streamed down silently. 3 years ago, I ran away from the wedding, left home, and lived anonymously, working at a nightclub. That night, he collapsed drunk at the bar, and I took in this man who claimed to be a graduate student from an orphanage. He said he wanted to sponsor the younger kids at the orphanage, so I gave him more than half of my salary. I remember the first time I gave him money, he cupped my face and said, "How can there be a girl as foolish as you?" Looking back now, it was truly ironic. I wiped away my tears and clutched the check tightly in my hand. Since he didn't want it, I'd donate it to the orphanage on his behalf. As soon as I got back to my apartment, Mrs. Davison, the landlady, smiled and stopped me. "Little Daisy, you're becoming a bride tomorrow. I'm looking forward to your wedding candy." I forced a smile. "Mrs. Davison, the wedding is cancelled. I'm moving out today, you don't need to return the deposit." Before she could react, I slipped inside and locked the door behind me. Inside the room, the meticulously packaged boxes of wedding candy were neatly arranged on the table, looking festive. But my heart felt utterly desolate. Closing my eyes, I numbly threw them into the trash can. My phone vibrated nonstop, message after message of congratulations from friends. With trembling fingers, I posted the wedding cancellation notice in the group chat, then tossed the phone aside. I dug out the phone that had been tucked away in the drawer for 3 years and sent a message, "I do." 3 years ago, when that person saw me off, He said with red eyes, "If you ever decide you want to marry me, I'll always be here." Taking one last look around the small room full of memories, I quietly closed the door and left the place I had lived for 3 years. Returning to the Miller residence, Mom hugged me, weeping, while Dad sat nearby, silently wiping away tears. They both regretted forcing me into an arranged marriage back then. Suppressing the bitterness in my heart, I gently comforted Mom and Dad, then turned and went upstairs to my room. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was Robert Blackwood. As if possessed, I pressed the answer button. His voice was filled with suppressed rage. "Daisy, get to the Blackwood estate immediately. Eleanor wants to see you." Just as I was about to refuse, his next sentence sent a chill down my spine. "Don't even think about saying no. Your video is still in my hands." Arriving at the Blackwood estate, the butler led me to the entrance of the dining room and then withdrew. The dining room door was ajar. Through the gap, the scene inside made me freeze on the spot. Robert Blackwood had a woman pinned against the dining table, kissing her fiercely. The woman initially resisted, but under his intense assault, her body gradually went soft. Her fair legs slowly wrapped around his waist. The sounds of intimate breathing were exceptionally clear in the quiet dining room. I reeled back, my foot slipping in my panic, and I fell heavily to the floor. "Are you Miss Daisy?" I looked up and saw a woman standing at the doorway, wearing a low-cut slip dress. The flush hadn't left her face yet, and she was breathtakingly beautiful. This must be the young Miss Eleanor of the Blackwood estate, the unattainable ideal in the hearts of men in Capital City, Eleanor Blackwood. Seeing me, Robert Blackwood irritably tugged at his shirt collar. Then, right in front of me, he laced his fingers directly with Eleanor Blackwood's. Eleanor Blackwood gave him a coquettish glare, clearly long accustomed to such actions from him. She looked at me apologetically. "Miss Daisy, the ridiculous things my brother has done these past 3 years. I apologize for him. Would you do me the honor of joining us for a meal?" Under the piercing gaze of Robert Blackwood, I silently nodded. The Blackwood parents lived abroad, so there were only the 3 of us at the table. Eleanor Blackwood suddenly spoke. "I heard you were supposed to have a wedding tomorrow." Before she could finish, Robert Blackwood quickly interrupted. "Eleanor, there's really nothing between us. If you don't believe me, ask her." After he spoke, he narrowed his eyes and stared at me warningly. I understood what he meant. If I dared to say anything contrary, he would make that video public. Putting down my fork, I gave a self-deprecating laugh. "Miss Eleanor, there really is nothing between him and me. For 3 years, he remained chaste for you, he hasn't even touched my hand." "Daisy, what are you talking about?" Robert Blackwood slammed the table and stood up. I froze, my gaze flickering between the 2 of them. Robert Blackwood's ears were bright red, and Eleanor Blackwood's face was pale. They were practically inseparable at the dining table just moments ago. What were they pretending now? I lowered my head and gave a bitter smile, saying no more. Throughout the meal, Robert Blackwood kept putting food on Eleanor Blackwood's plate, while Eleanor Blackwood kept lifting her bowl to avoid it. Robert Blackwood's eyes grew dim, and his gaze towards me became increasingly resentful. The meal was like chewing on wax. Eleanor Blackwood seemed to be deliberately avoiding Robert Blackwood. After the meal, she pulled me to his study. The moment she pushed the door open, my breath hitched. In the space of several dozen square meters, all four walls were densely covered with photos of Eleanor Blackwood. From childhood to adulthood, through every season. Robert loves photography, she said, gently stroking a photo frame, her smile tender. He always said I was his exclusive model. He must have taken quite a few photos of you too, right? Not a single one. I heard my own dry voice. Excuse me, Miss Eleanor, I need to use the restroom. With that, I fled this suffocating space in a panic. At the end of the hallway, a pair of hands suddenly pulled me into the stairwell. Robert Blackwood propped his arms on either side of me, trapping me in the cramped space. He leaned in close, the menace in his eyes making me shiver. Daisy, are you trying to get yourself killed? Spreading nonsense in front of Eleanor, now she's avoiding me. How should I deal with you, huh? I just told the truth. His brows were tightly furrowed. What do you mean remain chaste? She's my sister. I pulled the corners of my mouth into a smirk and met his eyes. You were kissing like you couldn't get enough at the dinner table. What are you pretending to be innocent for now? Is it not an open secret at the Blackwood estate that you're in love with your own sister? He was visibly startled, then curled his lips into a playful smile. Are you jealous? You think too highly of yourself. He suddenly reached out and touched my waist, his fingertips tracing provocatively. Who said I haven't touched you just now? Daisy, is there any part of your body I'm not familiar with? His warm breath brushed against my ear, or, are you blaming me for never having taken you? Humiliation instantly flooded my body, and my lips trembled uncontrollably. Robert Blackwood, let go now or I'll scream. How about we let Eleanor Blackwood see what her dear brother is up to? His pupils constricted violently, and he slapped a hand over my mouth. You wouldn't dare. The force was so strong I could barely breathe. I struggled desperately. What are you doing? Eleanor Blackwood stood at the top of the stairs, her face drained of color, watching our struggling arms. Robert Blackwood released me as if he'd been electrocuted. Eleanor, it's not what you think. Eleanor Blackwood bit her lower lip hard, tears welled up and streamed down her face, and she turned and ran upstairs. Robert Blackwood's face instantly changed, and he chased after her in a panic. Eleanor! I slowly slid down the wall to the floor, a dull ache rising in my chest. Just a spiteful remark at the dinner table was enough to make him go to such lengths to confront me. He loved Eleanor Blackwood, to such an extent. The sound of their argument from upstairs came down clearly. Eleanor Blackwood's voice trembled, thick with tears. Robert, you've found someone you like. Sister, I'm happy for you. Robert Blackwood's voice was tight. It's not like that. There's nothing between her and me. I was just. Robert, you don't need to explain to me. You've been together for 3 years. You were supposed to get married. Eleanor Blackwood. Suddenly, a suppressed roar, shaking the air. Stop talking about that woman. Don't you understand? I never wanted you to be my sister. I want you to be my woman. His voice was tinged with madness. From the day you entered the Blackwood estate, my eyes have only been on you. The day you got married, I wished I could die. I could only find some girl from a nightclub to numb myself. You clearly love me too, so why are you deliberately avoiding me? Eleanor Blackwood's crying stopped abruptly, her voice so faint it was almost inaudible. I only ever saw you as a brother. Robert Blackwood suddenly let out a low laugh, his eyes bloodshot. Is that so? Then when you were 18, who was it who stole a kiss from me while I was asleep? The night of my 20th birthday, who was it who climbed into my bed wearing a silk nightgown? And just now, at the dining table, whose legs were wrapped around my waist, refusing to let go? Eleanor Blackwood's eyelashes trembled lightly. Tears fell silently, but she couldn't say a single word. Damn it! Robert Blackwood grabbed the back of her head and kissed her fiercely. Upstairs fell silent. I could hear the sound of my own heart beating, each beat more painful than the last. When I stood up, leaning against the wall, my legs were shaking so much I could barely stand. Lovers finally together. What a beautiful ending. I took out my phone, my fingertip paused on the screen for 3 seconds, then I decisively blocked all of Robert Blackwood's contact information. I took out the SIM card and resolutely threw it towards the trash can. Goodbye, my ridiculous 3 years. The next day, Eleanor Blackwood somehow got my contact information and called the butler's line. She arranged to meet me at the nightclub where I worked, saying she had a video for me. My heart plummeted, and I rushed over. Amidst the deafening music, I immediately saw the scene playing on repeat on the large stage screen. My naked, tear-streaked figure was magnified across the entire wall. The men in the booths were commenting on the screen, "TSK, TSK, Daisy always acted like a saint around us, wouldn't even let us touch her hand. Who knew she was so wild behind her back? This video is pretty hot. Role-playing? Gangster and hostage? Her body is really good. If only I could get a taste." Everything went black, my legs turned to jelly, and I just collapsed onto the floor. Tears streamed down uncontrollably. I had already obediently left, so why was she still doing this to me? Well, look who it is, Daisy. Someone spotted me, and everyone in the nightclub turned to look. Malicious stares, knowing smiles, and some people even raised their phones to take photos of me. I covered my face, an unprecedented feeling of humiliation threatening to drown me. Eleanor Blackwood appeared seemingly out of nowhere, elegantly parting the crowd and helping me towards a private room. Inside the private room, the image froze. The video still lingered in my mind. I was shaking all over, shivering so hard my teeth chattered. Eleanor Blackwood considerately handed me a warm drink. "Have some water to warm up." "Thank you." I drank it without hesitation, but I didn't notice the fleeting cold smile at the corner of her lips. Soon, my breathing became rapid, my body uncontrollably grew hot and weak, and I was completely paralyzed on the sofa. The gentle and noble smile on Eleanor Blackwood's face suddenly vanished, replaced by cold mockery. "Jasmine, are you satisfied with today's arrangement?" My heart clenched. How did she know my real name? A chill ran up my spine. "Eleanor Blackwood, what exactly do you want?" "What do I want?" A malicious smile appeared on her face. "Didn't you like running away from your wedding and working at a nightclub? Today, I'll make sure you have a proper work session right here." With that, she yanked open the private room door. Several of the men who had been commenting on me in the grand hall earlier walked in with leering smiles. My eyes widened in horror, my voice trembling uncontrollably. "Eleanor Blackwood, it's over between me and your brother. I'm a victim too, why are you doing this?" "Robert Blackwood?" she suddenly scoffed. "Does he really think he's worth this much effort from me?" She leaned down and said, word for word, into my ear, "It's been 3 years, Miss Daisy. Do you still remember David Davison? His phone wallpaper has always been your photo." With that, she left the private room without looking back. Before I could fully process the meaning of her words, the men were upon me, roughly tearing at my clothes. My body was weak, I barely struggled a few times before collapsing onto the sofa. This weak resistance only seemed to excite the men more. "Honey, we guys bought you drinks every day, but you wouldn't even give us a smile. You hurt our feelings, so today we have to punish you properly." "Punish her how?" "We're just doing what we're paid for. All right guys, today we're going to take good care of Miss Daisy." Bang! The private room door was kicked open violently. The men froze, looking towards the doorway in horror. Robert Blackwood's anxious gaze swept the private room. When he saw me, my clothes disheveled, his pupils constricted sharply. I looked at him through tears, wanting to call for help but only managing broken whispers. "Robert, look," Eleanor Blackwood tugged at his sleeve. She clearly wanted this. "Let's not interfere." Robert Blackwood stared intently at me. I blinked desperately for help. The next second, a self-mocking curve appeared on his lips. "Apologies, Miss Daisy, for interrupting your pleasure." Eleanor Blackwood turned back and gave me a triumphant smile. The door was slammed shut, cutting off all hope. I slowly closed my eyes and stopped struggling. In this world, ultimately, no one was coming to save me. On the way back, Robert Blackwood was agitated. Daisy's image, her clothes disheveled, her eyes teary and blurred, kept flashing back in his mind. He punched the back of the front seat in frustration, making the driver flinch. Mr. Robert, should I stop? Keep driving, he snapped, his trembling fingers unconsciously scrolling on his phone. Suddenly, a video forwarded in a gaming group caught his attention. Although it was censored, the familiar scene instantly froze the blood in his veins. This was clearly the video of Daisy that was filmed that day. Eleanor, what is this? He whipped his head around to look at Eleanor Blackwood, remembering that she had borrowed his phone yesterday. Eleanor Blackwood leisurely admired her newly done nails, saying casually, I thought it was quite interesting, so I sent it out for everyone to see. Do you have any idea this will ruin her? Robert Blackwood's voice was shaking. Of course, Eleanor Blackwood's red lips curved slightly. I want to ruin her. Robert Blackwood was struck as if by lightning. He suddenly remembered the unnatural flush on Daisy's face, then just now, in the private room, that was also you. Naturally, Eleanor Blackwood interrupted excitedly. She should be enjoying herself right now. Cold sweat instantly drenched Robert Blackwood's back, and he roared hoarsely, Driver, turn around! Turn around immediately! The few minutes it took to return to the nightclub felt like years to Robert Blackwood. His fingers trembled uncontrollably, and fine beads of cold sweat seeped from his forehead. His heart hammered in his chest, each beat a prayer. Daisy, please be okay. Eleanor Blackwood leaned back in the seat lazily, her red lips parting slightly. Didn't you say there was nothing between you two and that you only had me in your heart? Who are you putting on this frantic show for now? Or could it be that everything you said was a lie, that you actually fell in love with her? Of course not! Robert Blackwood roared out. As soon as the words left his mouth, his chest felt as if something was blocking it. He rubbed his temples in frustration. Eleanor Blackwood, now is not the time for this. I don't know why you wanted to harm Daisy, but I'll settle the score with you after I save her. Now, shut up. Eleanor Blackwood turned her face away dismissively and said nothing more. As soon as the car stopped, Robert Blackwood rushed into the nightclub like a madman. The moment he pushed open the private room door, his blood nearly froze. The floor was a mess of broken glass, scattered clothes, and a shocking bloodstain on the sofa. His heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. He stumbled and grabbed a passing waiter, his voice hoarse. Where are the people from this private room? The girl with eyes like a deer, Daisy, where is she? Sir, I don't know. The waiter broke free in terror and ran off. Robert Blackwood stood rooted to the spot, experiencing the feeling of 1,000 arrows piercing his heart for the first time. He was still too late. He could have saved her. Tears fell silently, and fear washed over him like a tide. She had worked at the nightclub for 3 years, always wearing modest long sleeves and pants, terrified of being taken advantage of in the slightest. How could someone so pure and chaste bear such humiliation? Daisy, would she do something desperate? The thought instantly suffocated him, and he had to lean against the wall to barely stand. Gathering his last ounce of strength, he stumbled towards the small place they had lived together for 3 years. Miss Daisy? She moved out a few days ago. The place has already been rented to someone else. The landlady's words had barely finished when Robert Blackwood felt the world spin. Unable to stand any longer, he collapsed heavily to the ground, losing all consciousness. For a whole month, I was in the hospital receiving psychological treatment. The experience that day had left me with severe psychological trauma. Whenever I closed my eyes, those terrifying scenes would surface, waking me from nightmares, leaving me unable to sleep all night. At that moment, my clothes had been torn open. It was just as those men were about to have their way. The private room door was kicked open violently. David Davison burst in, his eyes blazing red. He kicked away the 2 men on top of me and grabbed a bottle, smashing it hard over the head of the nearest man. The sound of glass shattering, screams, and fighting mixed together. In a daze, I saw David Davison's face, usually gentle and smiling, now filled with ferocity. He trembled as he draped clothes over me and picked me up. Jasmine, wake up. The drug made my consciousness hazy, but I could still see his tightly furrowed brows. Involuntarily, I reached up and touched his brow, kissing him under the influence of the drug. David Davison, I'm okay. I comforted him softly. He suddenly tightened his arms, burying his face in my shoulder. Warm liquid soaked my collar. This man, who had always been so steady, was crying silently. Miss Jasmine, the doctor has assessed your psychological state as stable. You can be discharged today. The nurse's voice pulled me back from my memories. By the hospital bed, David Davison's face, tense for a month, finally relaxed slightly. David Davison, thank you for saving me, I said softly. I'm sorry, Jasmine. If I had replied to your message sooner. He took a deep breath, as if having made a decision. There's something I need to tell you. Eleanor Blackwood is my ex-wife. What? My eyes widened in shock. He lowered his head, his voice extremely hoarse. After seeing you off 3 years ago, I went abroad too. My father acted without consulting me and arranged a marriage certificate for Eleanor Blackwood and me in Las Vegas. Although we were university classmates, I wasn't close to her. I didn't understand why she was so determined to marry into the Davison family. It wasn't until I returned recently that I found out about it. Now, we are divorced. I stared at him blankly, suddenly understanding why Eleanor Blackwood had targeted me. She thought David Davison divorced her because of me. But weren't she and Robert Blackwood in love? David Davison looked up at me, his eyes filled with cautious hope. You still have a chance to change your mind. After all, I'm divorced now. I'm not worthy of you. I do. His eyes instantly lit up. Jasmine, are you really willing? I nodded softly. If I hadn't stubbornly run away from the wedding back then, I would be Mrs. Davison now, perhaps even with children. David Davison and I had known each other since childhood. He was 2 years older than me and always treated me like a precious treasure. Since I was a teenager, I knew he liked me. His gaze towards me was always intense and burning, making my heart race every time. But back then, I only saw him as a other. How could I have been willing to marry him? Perhaps I was wrong from the start. Why didn't I try to accept this person who loved me wholeheartedly and knew everything about me? If I had, I wouldn't have met Robert Blackwood, nor would I have gone through those unbearable heartaches. When David Davison took me back to the Miller residence, Mom and Dad's faces were full of relief. To keep them from worrying, I lied and said I had been traveling abroad this month. When they heard the news that David Davison and I were getting married, their joy was palpable. Dad exclaimed wonderful 3 times and excitedly patted David Davison's shoulder. I've always wanted you as a son-in-law since you were little. Jasmine was naive back then. I apologize to you. From now on, please be patient with my willful daughter. David Davison looked at me gently and replied softly, Don't worry, sir. Mom quietly wiped away tears from the corners of her eyes and murmured, All's well that ends well. Now, after hardship, comes ease. At the dinner table, Dad suddenly brought up, I heard that the dissolute young Mr. Robert from the Blackwood estate is searching everywhere for a woman named Daisy, offering $100 million reward. The day before yesterday, private investigators even came asking around. I don't know what that brat is up to again. The Blackwood estate's fortune will be squandered by him sooner or later. David Davison gave me a meaningful look. I felt a bit uncomfortable and lowered my head, quickly putting food on Dad's plate. Dad, this dish is very much to your taste. Have some more. At the Davison Group's 50th anniversary gala, almost all of Capital City's elite were present. I wore an elegant couture gown, held a glass of red wine, and moved through the magnificent grand hall. Looking up casually, I met a familiar gaze. Robert Blackwood stood among the crowd, staring at me blankly. He was so gaunt he was almost unrecognizable. He, who always see art about his appearance, hadn't even shaved. He rushed over, pulled me into a hug. Daisy, where did you go? I searched all over Capital City, your apartment, the nightclub, your phone wouldn't connect, all your contacts were blocked. His voice was choked. When I rushed back that day, you were already gone. I thought you. As for those men who hurt you, I've had their legs broken. The videos online have all been cleaned up too. I know Eleanor was the one who harmed you. It was out of jealousy. I'm willing to atone for her. If you're willing, how about we get married? Ignoring him, I was about to leave, but he blocked me again. A flicker of pain crossed his eyes. Daisy, don't be willful. What man could accept that kind of thing? Who else could you marry besides me? I promise I won't look down on you, and I'll never mention this matter after we're married. I couldn't help but laugh. What about Eleanor Blackwood? His expression shifted repeatedly. Eleanor and I can't get married. Mom and Dad wouldn't agree. Oh, I drawled. So, young Mr. Robert plans to marry me publicly, while secretly continuing his affair with Eleanor? His face darkened. Daisy, I'm not that depraved. Eleanor and I are over. I scoffed. Say what you like, I won't be marrying you. As the last note of the final piano piece faded, the gala officially began. Under everyone's gaze, the Davisons, father and son, slowly walked into the grand hall. David Davison's posture was straight, and a well-tailored black suit made him appear even more refined and elegant. He calmly dealt with the guests from all sides, but his gaze kept searching through the crowd, finally settling on me. We exchanged a smile and raised our glasses in a silent toast. Witnessing this scene, Robert Blackwood's throat bobbed. Don't tell me you've fallen for David Davison? Stop dreaming. He has an unattainable ideal in his heart. He hasn't married all these years because he's waitin'. G for her. Too lazy to respond, I was about to walk towards David Davison, but I heard him lower his voice behind me. He's my former brother-in-law. He couldn't even stand my sister. How could he possibly be interested in you? Are you that overconfident? Eleanor Blackwood appeared beside me unexpectedly, and the red wine in her hand was suddenly thrown onto my face. You humiliated the Davison family by running away from the wedding back then, and now you have the nerve to show your face here? Looking as dirty as you do now, you actually fantasize about marrying David Davison? She showed no remorse towards me, instead grandly accusing me. Thinking of what she had done to me, I raised my hand to slap her. But before I could slap her, Robert Blackwood grabbed my hand. I said, I'll take responsibility for Eleanor's mistakes. If you want to hit someone, hit me. Looking at his resolute expression, my heart turned as cold as ice. Who would believe that he had just said he was over Eleanor Blackwood and wanted to marry me? Eleanor Blackwood raised an eyebrow triumphantly. You can't even handle a man like Robert Blackwood, and you fantasize about getting David Davison? Before I could speak, Robert Blackwood's face darkened. Eleanor Blackwood. What do you mean, a man like me? Isn't it true? Eleanor Blackwood sneered. A man who comes running like a dog whenever I crook my finger. Robert Blackwood stiffened, veins bulging on his clenched fists, but he couldn't utter a single word in rebuttal. Eleanor Blackwood added fuel to the fire. You're even more disgusting than your dad. Your study is filled with my photos, yet in your drawer, you keep a treasured side profile photo of Jasmine. You clearly liked her, but you thought her status was too low to be worthy of young Mr. Robert, so you found ways to humiliate her. Well, now she's latched onto David Davison, who is 10,000 times better than you. As for you, a notorious wastrel, she can't even be bothered to look at you. At the mention of Jasmine, Robert Blackwood's eyes were filled with regret. They had known each other for 3 years, yet only today did he learn her real name. If he had known sooner, how could he have harbored such reservations, or run away from the wedding at the last minute under Eleanor Blackwood's instigation, humiliating her to such an extent? It's all your fault. Robert Blackwood suddenly exploded in rage and slapped Eleanor Blackwood across the face. Eleanor Blackwood shrieked and lunged, clawing at his face. The two immediately devolved into a brawl, causing guests to turn their heads. The Davison family's bodyguards quickly stepped forward and escorted the brother and sister out of the gala. Later I learned that the Blackwood brother and sister were not originally planned to be invited to the gala. But David Davison wanted to publicly validate me in front of them, to let everyone know how important I was to him. After that day, the Blackwood brother and sister's reputation in society was completely ruined. No one was willing to consider an arranged marriage with the Blackwood estate anymore. Robert Blackwood spent his days drinking heavily. Finally, one day, he completely lost control and beat Eleanor Blackwood until she was on her knees begging for mercy. Eleanor Blackwood broke her leg when she jumped out the window to escape. The next day, Robert Blackwood voluntarily went to the police station to report the incident, saying he had audio evidence of Eleanor Blackwood drugging me, as well as witnesses. With solid evidence, Eleanor Blackwood was arrested and imprisoned, and Robert Blackwood was also taken into custody for intentional assault. When I went to the police station to give my statement, Robert Blackwood insisted on seeing me. Behind the bars, his face was gaunt, his former arrogance completely gone. I was terribly wrong about everything in the past. I know it's too late to say I love you now. You probably won't believe it, but I was looking forward to that wedding too. The thought of marrying you, of having you as my wife, made me so excited I couldn't sleep. It was all my pride acting up. I felt your background wasn't presentable, yet in other people's eyes, wasn't I just a good-for-nothing myself? Ultimately, it was me who made us miss our chance. He choked out, "Jasmine, can you forgive me?" I was silent for a moment, then gently shook my head. After a while, his eyes red, he lowered his head miserably, his shoulders shaking slightly, as if weeping. I felt there was nothing more to say to him and quietly left the room. As I was leaving, he had someone give me a photo. The photo was of my side profile, smiling particularly happily. It must have been taken secretly by him when we first went to donate to the orphanage. I threw the photo into the trash can, unwilling to keep any memory associated with him. Outside the door, David Davison gently put his arm around me. "Let's go. To try on wedding dresses." I looked up and asked with a smile, "The one you personally designed for me when you were 20?